Hello Raptors fans and welcome back to Raptors Report. Today we will be discussing the Toronto Raptors game against the Indiana Pacers. But before we do that, I want to talk about the NBA draft because they did lose a game last night and yep, that means it's time to make you guys happy. We're going to be talking about some of the guys that the Toronto Raptors could be drafting if they fall outside of the top 5. And I've already done a series of videos on many of the players that are near or at the top of this year's draft, but I decided to move down the list and pick out a guy that I think has a lot of potential and I think is kind of one of the sleeper picks in this year's draft. He is an international player, and as you've seen over the past couple of years, international players have been going very highly in the NBA draft. Last season, the top 2 picks were international players, 2 Frenchmen. The year before that, when Victor Wembanyama, maybe you've heard of him, he was the #1 overall pick, also from France. And yes, the guy I'm going to be talking about today is also from France. They are cranking out NBA prospects at a rate that is frankly kind of scary. Bilal Coulibaly, Zachary Rizaché, Alex Sarr, Victor Wembanyama, and now this guy, Noa Essengue. And he is a very intriguing prospect. He's 18 years old, a forward/wing from Orléans, France. And he plays in the German Bundesliga, which is the top level of basketball competition in Germany. And he plays for Ratio Farm Ulm, which is one of the top teams in that league. And he has been very impressive so far in his young career. He, like many other international prospects, is an 18-year-old playing in a men's league. So this is a pretty high level of competition, and he's playing against players who are much more physically developed than him, and he's really shined in this league. So Essengue is a thin, forward-sized player who kind of moves like a wing. And he has really good foot speed for his height with very long arms, a great wingspan. His physical tools look great. When you watch him play, he's very similar physically and athletically to the other wing-forward hybrids that have been so successful in the NBA recently, like Brandon Ingram, Pascal Siakam, Kevin Durant, etc. He looks similar to those players. He is 6'9" with a long wingspan and just moves fluidly and very athletically around the court, kind of like a wing. He also has kind of a basic handle. It's not very advanced yet. Nothing fancy, but he can punish hard closeouts and get to the rim if there's not too much help defense. But really, what his big strength is right now is on the defensive end. He has great processing on that end, and he's very active, and he's a willing help defender. He has really good anticipation in the half court when he is guarding off of the ball. He likes to jump in and poke the ball loose, provide help defense when ball handlers are driving into the lane. He will peel off of his man and come in and swipe at the ball. He gets steals that way. He's active in the passing lanes with his length and speed. He can pick off balls that are, being kicked out to players on the perimeter. He is a good help defender. He'll even help out under the basket, even though he's, not really a big, but he is another guy that adds that length that you want around the basket to make it hard to shoot over. In terms of man defense, he's good there too. He has good lateral foot speed. He can track players around the court. Smaller players he can guard down, and then he can guard up against larger players with his length. And he loves getting steals, which, shows up in the stat sheet. He is packing up that statistic. He's averaging 1.5 steals in just under 24 minutes per game, which is about 2 steals per 36 minutes, which is great. Offensively, there are some question marks, which I think is why he hasn't made more noise in this year's draft. Particularly the 3-point percentage is a little concerning. He's shooting 29% from 3 on 2 attempts per game. And Ratio Farm Ulm has him playing on the wing and in the corner, where he can either shoot a 3-point shot or cut to the basket. And he is a very good cutter. He's very quick with long arms. I'm sure you've watched Chris Boucher quite a bit at this point. That's kind of what you could expect offensively from him at this point, which is shooting 3-point shots and cutting to the rim and being a big target for either lobs or dump-offs into the dunker spot. And he is a very good finisher around the rim. He is very explosive jumping off of 2 feet. He can dunk it pretty easily. He has good touch around the rim, so he can get it on the glass and finish. That is one of the best aspects of his game right now on offense, is his ability to cut to the basket. But the question marks about his shot are real. 29% on 2 attempts per game is not a very good mark for a player who you would hope is able to stretch the floor a little bit, but I will say that his shot looks pretty good. It's pretty quick. The form up on the top looks decent. He has a nice high release. One of the issues is that his footwork needs a little bit of work on that shot, but it doesn't look broken, doesn't look unfixable. Right now, it's just not very accurate, so that has to be taken into account when evaluating him as a prospect. Another thing is that his offensive game is a little raw at this point, so he doesn't have a complex handle. He isn't a very good isolation player. His back to the basket game is fine when it's a mismatch, so if he's going up against a smaller player, he's able to punish that with his great touch, and he has a decent drop step to the basket. What I would love to see from him as a prospect is kind of what Pascal Siakam does, which is use his foot speed in the mid post, where you can catch the ball and get into the triple threat position where you can drive, pass, or shoot the ball, and really utilize that foot speed that is very good for him, and his quickness and his agility. A face-up game to the basket where you can give him the ball and have him produce buckets would raise his ceiling immensely. I think that there's a really good base to build upon, where you can look at his physical attributes and his good processing, his understanding of the game, and project forward and be like, okay, well, if we add this piece to his game, maybe improve his shot a little bit, maybe do this, and then all of the physical tools and the defense and all the stuff that he has right now remain at the same level or improve there too, you're looking at an extremely good two-way player. Right now, he's a little bit of a project, but again, a lot of the guys that I've mentioned right now are very young. Very few of the players that I have mentioned are over 20 years old right now. This is a young draft class where you could potentially see a lot of improvement from these guys from year to year. And what I really like about Noa Essengue is that his physical tools are very apparent. This guy looks like a prototypical new school forward. I think he has a lot of potential, and I like him a lot more at this position. So the 6, 7, 8, if the Raptors get really unlucky or they really start winning games towards the end of the season, they might fall into the range where Noa Essengue is the best prospect available. And I like him a lot more than a lot of the other NCAA prospects that I haven't mentioned yet, because I feel like just in terms of physical tools and where he could fit and his archetype within the NBA, he plays a role where you see other players like him in the NBA and how they have gone from where they were as prospects to where they are now, which is a very versatile, multi-use player who can defend multiple positions. And in the case of, the guys I mentioned, Siakam, Ingram, Durant, those guys really added to their offensive game, especially Siakam. If he can take that kind of path, you're looking at an amazing player. He's also very much a Raptors player. I know that over the past couple of years, they've gone away from, the Vision 6-9 idea of what they like in players, but I don't think that they've strayed too far. Most of the front office is still intact. I'm sure that they do like players such as Noah. He is very tall, rangy, athletic, quick-footed, multi-positional defender. That ticks a lot of the boxes that the Raptors are looking for. And in terms of fit, I know that a lot of people have been worried that the Raptors are going to draft, another guard, another small wing, scoring wing, and they're thinking, oh no, we've got too many of these players already. Well, I'll throw you a little bit of a bone here, not because I think that necessarily picking this guy because of his fit. I think he is probably the best prospect after the guys that I've already covered, but I think he does fit the Raptors very well right now, and he could fit into a ton of different lineups with his skill set. I also think that his cutting ability would be very useful in Darko's system, so another kind of fit element here where he could be involved off of the ball, moving around, setting off-ball screens, cutting to the basket. His processing would be a good add to that system because he does have a good feel for the game. I think that he would be a good fit for the Toronto Raptors system, and I like him as a prospect. If the Raptors do fall too far, I think that I would be, satisfied with the Toronto Raptors drafting this guy. And now, why don't we jump into the Toronto Raptors game against the Indiana Pacers. This was not too much of an exciting game in the second half. It was okay in the first half. No Scotty Barnes this game. Jakob Poeltl made his return, but there weren't a ton of success stories in this game. I think that the Pacers really solved the Toronto Raptors offensively. I'm going to give it to Emmanuel quickly, even though I don't think he had a great night. So that kind of gives you an idea of how this game went. He had 18 points on 15 shots. He was 1 of 4 from 3, 1 of 3 from the free throw line, with 2 rebounds, 6 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 0 turnovers. Statistically, he was the best player in the starting lineup, but his shot wasn't hitting very much. I don't think that the Raptors were generating a ton of looks in the half court, and a lot of that you have to put on the shoulders of the lead guard. So him and RJ Barrett weren't really beating the Pacers in the paint or from the three-point line. They weren't really stressing the defense enough. And without Scotty Barnes there to take some of the playmaking duties and helping out there, he has always played very well against the Pacers. I feel like the Raptors just did not have enough juice this game, and Emmanuel quickly just really didn't have it going either. RJ Barrett also had a pretty mid game. He had 16 points on 15 shots. He was 1 of 6 from 3. Here's the good news. He was 5 of 5 from the free throw line. That is very encouraging to see because he has had an issue at the free throw line for a while now. 2 rebounds, 5 assists, 0 blocks, 0 steals, 0 turnovers. Nothing really to write home about. He's been very good. Other than this game, he has had a string of very, very solid games for the Toronto Raptors. So I'm not too down on him. They were missing, a table setter, a guy who makes life easier for players on the offensive end, a guy who draws a lot of offensive attention in Scotty Barnes. So when you're the next man up, your role gets a little bit tougher. And I feel like this wasn't a great game from him. Unfortunately, I think if he hit a couple more threes, like if he was 3 of 6 from 3 instead of 1 of 6 from 3, I think he would have had a fantastic game. That's not amazing analysis. If he hit more shots, he would have had a good game. I get it, but I mean, like, he has been shooting the ball pretty well recently. This wasn't one of those games. So next up, we'll go to Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl had one strong half and one kind of invisible half. He only played 24 minutes in this game. Maybe he should have been higher on this list. Maybe he was better than RJ or maybe even Quickly. But he showed some signs of rust, and he didn't play a lot of minutes. He did have 10 points on 8 shots. He was 2 of 4 from the free throw line. He had 5 rebounds, 2 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 0 turnovers. In the first half, he was showing that, he is very important for the Toronto Raptors pick and roll. He was doing a really good job rolling into the paint and getting the ball off glass into the rim. I think that he was doing a good job. His screens are very good. He is a very big target on the roll. You can get the ball to him and his hands are very good. He even had a very nice drive against Miles Turner, who was playing him up at the 3-point line, and I guess Poeltl felt that he got a little too high on him, and he said, screw it, I'm going to take it all the way to the rim, and he drove from the 3-point line all the way to the rim and laid it in. That was really cool. I've never really seen him do that, and it's good to have him back, although it didn't really result in a win. And on defense, he struggles against shooting bigs. Brook Lopez, Miles Turner. Miles Turner had like an insane shooting night. He was 5 of 5 from 3-point range. And really, Poeltl is too much of he has those instincts on overdrive where he wants to protect the basket as much as possible. He can guard the perimeter, but a lot of the time, I think when he sees a big out there, he's comfortable letting them shoot. And Miles Turner is just too good of a 3-point shooter to give him much space at all. And so he kind of punished Poeltl quite a few times. 5 of 5 from 3, that's pretty crazy. Next up, we'll go to Ochai Agbaji. Ochai Agbaji had 10 points on 10 shots. He was 2 of 5 from 3, which is good to see. I'm glad that he's kind of busted out of his shooting slump. He's had a couple of good shooting games in a row, and I really think it's kind of about going back to the corner. The corner is kind of his home. If he catches the ball and he's feeling comfortable and he's relatively open, it seems like he makes the shot more often than not, so that's good to see. 4 rebounds, 1 steal, 0 blocks, 3 turnovers, so not an incredible night from him. And honestly, the defense, just in general, when you're missing Scotty Barnes, of course, and you're playing RJ Barrett, Emmanuel Quickly, and Grady Dick at the same time, you're going to have some issues defensively. And of course, Jakob Poeltl's a good defender, Ochai Agbaji's a good defender, but especially when you employ a system where you switch a lot of the screens, they're going to end up with a matchup that they really like, and it's going to be against one of the Raptors' weaker defenders, so it's not like Ochai Agbaji is going to be able to shut down a guy. I think that they're just, at this point, more comfortable with switches, and that means that Ochai Agbaji might not be involved in as many defensive possessions as you would like if he is one of your top defenders on the floor. So next up, we'll go to Grady Dick. Grady Dick did have some good elements to his game last night, but overall I would say it was mediocre to slightly negative. He had 10 points on 12 shots, so the shooting is still not there. He was 2 of 7 from 3, not efficient enough. On the bright side, he did have 5 rebounds. It really seems like he is putting an emphasis on rebounding the ball and getting up and really using his athleticism. He is a good leaper, and he is jumping and getting the ball, and I like to see that. Got to give him credit there. And number 2, with Jakob Poeltl in the first quarter and the first half at least, he made a number of very nice passes in the pick and roll. And that's something that we don't see the Raptors go to very often. Or Grady Dick is more of an off-ball player. He is not a screen and roll ball handler in the Raptors offense, but we saw it a couple of times last night, and it looked pretty good. He was able to get the ball over, sort of lob it into Jakob Poeltl, who could get it onto the glass and in. So I like to see that. 1 steal, 0 blocks, 2 turnovers, and just the defense is not good. He did have a couple of nice closeouts. That is one of the elements of his defense, which is good, where he's able to close the gap to shooters on the perimeter and bother their shot a little bit. I like that. The other parts of his defense, isolation defense, screen navigation, they're just not there. It's not very good at this point, and he needs to improve. Let's go to the bench. You know what? There were a bunch of good bench performances last night. First off, we'll go to the guy who had a really good scoring night. Jonathan Mobo had 16 points on 11 shots, 2 of 2 from the free throw line, 6 rebounds, 0 assists, 2 steals, 1 block, 2 turnovers. Really packed up that stat sheet. And he did miss a couple of easy shots around the rim, but I feel like he was doing a good job inside against the Pacers. So Jonathan Mobo is kind of an afterthought in the Toronto Raptors offense. He's not a guy that other teams are going to pay attention too much to, because he's an off-ball player who's not a very good shooter. He plays in the dunker spot and he can set screens, but he's not a great finisher at the rim. So other teams are just like, I'm not going to guard this guy. And last night was a good example of how he can use his movement to catch the ball and finish. And he still needs to work on his finishing. There were a couple of plays where he was not able to score at the rim when he was wide open, but he did a good enough job. He made 7 shots, all of them inside the arc. He did take 1 3, which he missed, which is unfortunate. And his defense is good. He is not a big guy who is going to provide like a ton of help around the basket. Like, he does try and help, but he's not big enough to really alter a ton of shots. What he is good at is when there is a switch and he can switch onto a perimeter player, or sometimes when he can come over and provide help on drives, try and steal the ball, play the passing lanes, be disruptive, get deflections, that kind of thing. He is good at that stuff, and I would say a positive on defense right now. But of course, he needs to be consistently a better finisher and maybe hit a couple more shots here and there in order for teams to have to guard him, because he is, as I mentioned, kind of the 5th guy on offense that other teams feel comfortable helping off of. Next up, we got to go to Jacoby Walter, and let's go to his stat line, because there's a huge disparity between the stat line and how he played last night. So 3 points on 1 of 6 shooting. He was 0 of 1 from 3, only hit 1 of 2 from the free throw line. 8 rebounds, okay. 1 assist, 1 steal, 0 blocks, 2 turnovers. Wow, that sounds like a crappy game. Jacoby Walter played some of the best defense I have seen all season from anybody, a perimeter defender, anybody on the inside, doesn't matter. Last night was so impressive. I was blown away. He was picking up Tyrese Halliburton. He was picking up Andrew Nembhard, Benedict Mathurin. Anybody who was, shorter than 6'8", he was all over and hounding them, deflecting the ball, coming over, poking balls loose. He was unreal. He even at the end of the game, when Thomas Bryant, who is like the backup center for the Indiana Pacers, who is a good offensive player and a huge load inside, he had Jacoby in the post, and Jacoby managed to do what little guys do in the post so well, which is flop, and he drew the offensive foul. The guy plays hard on the defensive end. He was amazing defensively, so we really got to talk about this guy. I see huge upside for him as a defensive player, and if he can get consistent from the 3-point line, now you're talking about a guy who has real serious potential as a 3-and-D player with maybe a little bit more added on top of that. So I loved what I saw from him defensively. Next up, Let's go to Orlando Robinson, who had another good game. Another good game. This guy's very solid. 8 points on 4 of 5 shooting, 3 offensive rebounds, no defensive rebounds, 1 assist, 3 steals, 0 blocks, 0 turnovers. Another really solid game from Orlando Robinson, playing good defense. In the first half, the Pacers were struggling to score. The Raptors were playing good defense. In the second half, it was kind of a gong show. The Pacers were just making a ton of shots. But yeah, Orlando Robinson, the guy plays his basketball the right way as a center. You love seeing guys who do the things that they should be doing, and it may not show up if you're not watching carefully, but the absence of head-smacking mistakes. So when you watch a big who's bad and doesn't know what's going on, and there's so many moments. I mean, over the years, they have had a ton of guys who are just don't get it, especially the backup, especially guys who are walk-ons or 10 days. You're just like, oh, like, what is this guy doing? There are very few moments with Orlando Robinson where you are really just hating what the guy is doing. And guess what? Okay, crisis averted. He is making his layups. He is making his bunnies, which was the big problem earlier. He was 4 of 5 from the field. He has been pretty efficient recently. I think that this guy has potential to be a rotation player. He has potential to be a guy that the Toronto Raptors perhaps should bring back. I'm really liking what I'm seeing. I think that I would not be opposed at all to see the Toronto Raptors offer this guy a contract in the offseason. And yeah, a couple of other players played. Nobody really, piqued my interest all that much. So let's just talk about the game in general. The Indiana Pacers played very well. They did their thing. They got up and down the court. It was tough for them in the first half. The Raptors were playing good defense. In the second half, their best players really popped off. Tyrese Halliburton was unstoppable last night. His shot is not broken anymore. He was horrible early in the season. He's just missing everything with this weird looking shot. Not so this game. He was 7 of 9 from 3. He was hitting logo threes, pull-up threes, just, off the dribble, very difficult shots, just making them. He had 11 assists, 3 steals, even 2 blocks. He was 12 of 15 from the field. He could not be stopped. Miles Turner, again, 6 of 8 from the field, 5 of 5 from 3, 10 rebounds, 2 assists. Pascal Siakam was the only guy who didn't really have a great game, 15 points on 14 shots. But yeah, it was a tough game. The Toronto Raptors looked horrible in the second half. They got thoroughly outplayed. This is going to happen. Scottie Barnes is an important player for the Toronto Raptors. He is a very big part of their defense. He can do a whole bunch for them, switch positionally. He plays really good help defense around the rim. He and Pirtle have a very good thing going on defensively. And then on offense, he is a guy that teams really pay attention to and opens up the floor for everybody else. To be honest, this game sucked. It wasn't as close as some of the other close losses that they've had recently, but the tank marches on. They're going to need to collect some of these losses right now because the schedule is starting to soften up. The Raptors do play tomorrow night against the Bulls in Chicago. The Bulls are a weird team. They have actually been on a little bit of a mini run right now. The guys that they've traded for have looked pretty good. They have really started to make a push for the play-in. It looks like they are going to be the play-in team in the East, or one of them, the 10th spot, maybe even higher. I don't think that the Toronto Raptors are going to beat the Bulls in Chicago. I think that the Bulls are playing a little too well right now, and the Raptors are kind of still trying to find their footing. With that said, if Scottie and Pirtle are healthy for that game, I think that they might give the Bulls a run for their money. We'll see how that one goes. But yeah, that is the episode. What do you guys think? Do you like Noa Essengue? Are there other guys that you like? How's the fit? Do you think he could fit on the team? Let me know here in the comments, and also on Twitter and Blue Sky, where you can reach me at Raps Report. I love talking to Toronto Raptors fans. As you know, I try to get it to as many of your comments as possible, either here or on Twitter or Blue Sky. So yeah, drop me a line, let me know what your thoughts are. And if you haven't already, please like the video and subscribe, because the algorithm notices those things and it allows the channel to be put in front of more Raptors fans such as yourself. And as always, thank you for tuning in to Raptors Report, your source for in-depth Raptors content.